Senators, we are live.
Thank you. Welcome, Tate. As you know, I'm trying to make some efforts to get to yes and trying to find where the lines in the sand are and how we react to them. So you're a veteran at this stuff. The floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and other committee members. For the record, my name is Tate Brooks. I'm the Deputy Secretary for the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. I want to thank the Senator and the rest of the committee members for having me in today. So, Senator, you're right in regards to the governor's veto of S-79 and what the governor was trying to achieve within the veto letter was a roadmap for the legislature to get to a place where he could sign off on said bill. And really appreciate your time and others' time since that veto, trying to see where we could reach some common ground on that. The chair recently did provide a counter proposal to the governor that he's had the opportunity to review. And again, I think there was some good progress on that front. I think where the counter proposal at this point in time falls short from the governor's perspective is in two areas. And so I'm just trying to really simplify this at this point in time. And so those two areas are one, again, that he outlined in the veto message was the exemption for the 120 days as far as providing that exemption. Again, the governor really trying to focus on not having additional burdens for mom and pop folks out there. So the counter proposal, as of at this point in time, if our read of it is correct, does not include that 120-day exemption. And then the other point, at least missing, at least from our read thus far, is the 5 positions over at DFS, and the governor not feeling comfortable adding up to those 5 positions, and really looking for kind of an interim road. And again, in the governor's veto message, one possibility that he outlined was the Brock Amendment, which really did kind of have an interim measure before really having those positions and giving everything completely over to fire safety. So, at this point in time, I think that's where we're at. That's I think the feedback I can provide.
Let me.
I'll pause there.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me interject here. And we'll come back to you, but I wanted to say the communications I've had with the 5th floor were Senator Clarkson was involved a little bit, but they're my suggestions as chair as to how we can move this forward. The committee has not fully heard of them or signed off on them, so I'm just going to outline them briefly here. I don't think they're going to come as much of a surprise, and they're pretty straightforward. As David Hall said, the governor had raised concerns about complaint-driven and the wide openness of the penalties, and I felt that was at worst a misunderstanding that could be easily corrected by the lawyers. We never intended for the penalty to not fit the crime, nor did we ever intend for there to be periodic inspections under this particular bill. It would always be complaint driven, and it was language things. So I think those things can be easily resolved. The big hurdle for us, as we understood it from the governor's letter and the conversations that we had with the 5th floor, or at least I had with the 5th floor, was the exemptions and the mom and pop issue. Our proposal was essentially to allow owner-occupied rentals of up to 3 units to be exempt. I I think some of the people that I've been working with, including Senator Clarkson, felt that if you had an owner-occupied unit, you were there yourself, you were going to be watching over it, and that there would be very less need for state intervention, but be it by the Department of Health or by fire safety. So that's essentially what we proposed, and hopefully we're thinking that that would get the ball rolling towards, because as we understood it, the mom and pop thing was the big thing. We also made it clear that we never intended for seasonal camps to be covered by this, and that was a big, apparently, brouhaha in the House. So that's where we are. We hope to maybe we'll think about it as a committee, but to continue our discussions, obviously, it's very important for us to get professional oversight over this program. And, I'm now hearing for the first time that the so-called Brock Amendment is a transitional one, perhaps. Maybe there's some room to work there, but I never read it as transitional. I heard it as an alternative to fire safety, and letting the towns have authority as to whether they wanted to hire fire safety, which I think would be a difficult pill for us to swallow, but I'm certainly willing to talk about variations on that. So I don't know if you want to, if the committee wants to weigh in, or Tate has more to say at this point, but I feel this is a work in progress. And, I met personally with Tate, and he knows how important this bill is to us. Any comments? Everybody seems to be on mute, except for Senator Brock.
All right.
Brock.
Well, I think at some point, for characterizing what the Brock Amendment says, it might be useful to go through it, and as to whether it is or is not transitional. But the concept behind it was that what was being asked by the committee, I think many of us thought, who were involved on the other side of this issue, felt that the bill was overkill. And that there was a way to achieve the goals and objectives of the bill in a less heavy-handed way, and also a way that did not require quite as big a investment in resources at this point in time. And part of the essence of it was that in some locations, we do have local officials who are doing this particular job. And we know that the way it's being done is, in fact, spotty. And so it does include such things as improving both the training and so on for local officials, and it adds clarity so that people who do have a problem have a secondary resource in a complaint-driven system, because that is retained in that amendment, so that in the event that a local health official does not respond appropriately, the ability to call fire safety in does exist. Now, since this bill was originally introduced, that was however long ago, and this is long before the so-called Brock Amendment was added, it was my assumption that there was no real backup in existence from fire safety. And I subsequently learned from talking with several fire marshals and also from constituents who were affected that there is a complaint-driven process in effect, and that people who find that they can't get help from their local health officers are, in fact, in some cases, calling fire safety, although it's not been well advertised, which is, again, another issue to deal with, and are getting help and are getting inspections done even now. So that was again, part of the impetus behind it. I think also the governor certainly mentioned in the veto that a concern that the heavy-handedness of this bill, by attempting to register everything, could have a negative impact on landlords deciding that this, with all, again, given all the other issues about being a landlord in Vermont, that it actually would result in somewhat of a decline in the number of available properties, because people say that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I've talked to several landlords who are in that position right now and are removing potentially rental property from the market because it's just too much of a pain to deal with.
Thank you for that. I certainly wanted to let you be heard on your amendment. That amendment was offered, right?
It was offered and it was defeated.
Right. And I think we discussed it in committee as well. And we can discuss ideas like that. Again, you know, I guess my own, and I don't want to debate it right now, but I'd hate to see towns all over the place on how they approach this. And town, are you, no, I'm not going to get into the details of it now, but so Tate, do you have anything more that you would like to say? Is the 100, let me ask you, could you explain a little bit more about the 120 days request that
Yes,
the government makes?
I'd like clarity on that too, Mr. Chair, because it's not related to anything else. I mean, that's part of our challenge with it. It's not related to anything else in statute, the 120 days. It seems pretty arbitrary.
Well, again, that was the number I know the governor felt comfortable with in regards to, again, mom and pop, you know, not going to be doing it year round or half a year, renting out those properties, that it was more on a very short-term basis.
So
I think, you know, there's some, I think we should take a look at that issue a little bit more, because I mean, it's a different, in some ways, it's a different group of mom and pops. The offer that that Senator Clarkson and I were talking about is more a small unit, a small landlord that lives in the house. This is more, it's more like a short-term rental. It's more like a seasonal rental, which we're already saying, especially if it's just, you know, it's not heated, is we're already thought we were exempting those. There is, it seems to me, and I talked about this a little bit with David Hall, there already is, even for those short-term rentals under 120 days, there is some place where people are directed to go. I'm not exactly clear what would happen if I had a short-term rental for just the summer months and there was a, you know, a breakdown in one of the systems or something and it wasn't being repaired. I don't know where they would go. They have the number to call. I don't know what would happen if we exempted the 120-day thing at this point. So, I mean, I think, I'm not sure that we're all that far apart on this, but I know that this issue is important and we need to find a way to get to yes. The reality is, if their votes are not there in the House, the governor has the power to constitutionally to stop that from happening. So we have to pay attention, and we will. But I want to extend, as I did even before the veto, as Tate knows, wrote a personal letter to the governor explaining, you know, my hope that he would sign it. I know we have different perspectives on, you know, the amount of preview of a veto we would have hoped to have gotten. It was, we tried to involve fire safety and the agency all the way through, and didn't feel
we did.
and we didn't feel we didn't see it coming. Let's put it that way. So we may have gotten a better idea when we passed it at the end, but when we passed it out of the Senate, we certainly didn't see it coming. So I don't know. Does anybody, Senator Clarkson?
Yeah, Tate, thank you. I think we all have the same objectives, and I would hope the administration would have the same objective we have. And certainly your commissioner of housing and our director of fire safety were with us all the way on this bill. You know, if people rent to the public and earn income from it, I mean, we as an administration and as legislators have an obligation and a duty to try and ensure as best we're capable the health and safety of Vermonters. I mean, so I hope we're all trying to accomplish the same thing. One of my concerns, I have many concerns, but one of them is using this term, also your definitions. I mean, mom and pop is obviously not defined anywhere in statute, and it's got sort of a sentimental notion, but in fact, anybody renting to the public is earning income. And, we carved out a provision for people who weren't opening it up to the public. But, I have a hard time understanding how anyone who's earning income, making money out of renting apartments, no matter how many, and we're talking about exempting 2 plus the 1 people live in, I have a hard time getting to the point where people who are renting to the public, making money, aren't held accountable and held to a standard of protecting the health and safety of Vermonters. And that's all we're trying to ensure, is a consistent way to protect Vermonters.
Senator Brock?
Well, I would argue that you could have a consistent way to protect Vermonters by having a system that has clear guidelines as to what is and is not acceptable, and has a procedure where there are agencies, both local and state, that can intervene when there is a complaint that something is not being done properly,
right,
without creating a very, very intrusive and involved registration process of every rental property in the state.
We
certainly
register every,
register every toilet.
right. We register every car. I mean, we register things that have impact on Vermonters' health and safety.
Well, we have a lot of things that have impact on Vermonters' health and safety that we don't register, that we don't regulate, that we don't license, and that we don't inventory. We don't inventory ladders, for example, and register them, although people can fall off them and hurt themselves. We certainly do have standards, though, at least federally, in terms of safety.
Right. And I think then we also have to hear how the 7 municipalities who have very robust rental registries are managing. I think the residents and owners of properties in those towns are not feeling the same as maybe all of us are feeling right now at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt this because we will have this debate again and later on. I know Senator Brock supports the concept of getting 2 because he voted for it at one point, and I think that he thinks he's found a better mousetrap that's less intrusive, and we will talk about all of this as we continue to debate the bill. I hope the administration, Tate, you can take this message back, will engage with us at the highest level on this, and so we get the word from the 5th floor what they will and will not accept, so we don't go out and delay any more than we need to. And I don't know, Tate, if you have any more for us at this point.
No, I mean, again, those were the two main points I wanted to highlight. I mean, I can assure you the administration will continue to engage with you and the rest of the committee on this. And again, in the way the veto message was crafted, it really was crafted as a way of, as a roadmap to assist you all as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. Okay, unless the committee has anything else, we're going to adjourn. I'll just talk a little bit about tomorrow. Tate, we're going to leave S70.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So tomorrow we're going to talk about a whole, if you remember, I can't remember the number that the House sent, 159.
157 or 159.
157 is the home improvement. 159 was their comprehensive economic development bill. And it did not pass. All of those provisions got, I think, incorporated elsewhere, mostly in the budget. But there was a raft of initiatives in that bill, and we're going to probably go through all of them for an update of how they were implemented and how they're going thus far. The big one, I think, in there is the Bridge Recovery Grant or GAP Recovery Grant Program. I would encourage you to read that report and the report on, I think there was a report on transformational projects. They're both very short, and we'll post those tomorrow. And then also the report from consultants on relocated workers. All of those things we'll take up with Joan Goldstein and her deputies tomorrow. I think it should be a full, interesting morning in terms of what any kind of changes we want to make on that. Senator Brock.
In addition to the report that we got from the consultants on the remote worker program, it'd probably be useful for the committee to take a look at the sort of counter report produced by the state auditor's office, questioning the conclusions of those consultants. I don't particularly agree entirely with some of the issues, but I think it's worth reading both, since I know it's going to be presented to us, the counterpart.
Well, interesting enough, I fully agree, but I've seen a lot of counter statements in the press. I didn't know he already issued a report on it.
Yeah, at least I've certainly seen the results of their conclusions, and there are some of it that's made publicly.
Okay.
And I believe Scott has kindly put all of these on our web page, so they're available for everybody to easily see.
Okay. The auditor, who is a friend of mine, certainly has a penchant for $130,000 program. Thank you very much, everybody. Scott, we can go offline, and we'll see everybody tomorrow at 9. And Senator Clarkson and I will see Scott at 8:50. Is that correct, Senator Clarkson?
Yes, yes, it is.